Alright, Subpartn, Illinois Oil and Gas Act, Subpartn, issue transfer permit operator. Definitions. Current permit of the range of the individual entity with the requirement of the whole of the permit with the permit with the issue of the room with the right of the drill, producing well of the possession of the full right with the responsibility operating the well in accordance with the requirements of the tag with the current with the obligation of collecting the wells, the sum of the transfer of the voluntary and voluntary sale of the wells. New permitting means for the individual entity with the acquiring with the wells derived with the drill with the produce with head well with the full right responsible for the operating well in accordance with the act with the current obligation on the plug sell wells owner with the accordance with the act with the required to hold with the permanent operator man individual with the involved entity with the control with the right to drill with the produce well full rights responsible for the operating wells along obligation ultimate plug wells with the operating agreement the owner interest the owner certification statement with the statement that made a new permit with the right to the operator well land formation requirement post transfer subpart D with the pursuant with the valid existing document memorandum with the public record of the PRF means of the designated subpart with the corners of subpart B with the and has been placed in the public registration program established under the section 19.6 of this act. Transfer of management repealed. Applicability. Provision subpart applies to assignments for the transfer of the voluntary and voluntary sale of the interest of the interest individual and with the home in the period with the issue of the permit include the chain with the ownership of the right to drill with the produce said wells along with the full right with the responsibility operating of the well in accordance with the act with the obligation ultimate plug said well the assignment with the voluntarily with the corporate with the other business takeover buyout with a merger similar transaction with involuntary terminal lease rights with the court order new base lease with the give device or other transfer chain designation operator managed with the operating similar agreement with the owner with the right to drill with the other produce said well with the full responsible for the operating well with the Corns Act with the obligation ultimate plug said well as assigned with the right with the pursuing with the action of the operator with the shop of the interest of the designated with the owner and permittee for the appointment of the current competent jurisdiction trustee receive the exercise custody of the control of the well. The wells include right to drill with the produced wells well with along with the full right with the operator responsible for the operating well with the provision subpart shall not apply with the assignment of the transfer sale of the royalty overriding royalty fracture working interest not affecting the rights of the responsible for the permit agent shall apply with the transfer of the PFR well of the person with the requesting of the permit with accordance for the act of the administrative record correction transaction and issue with the department transfer of the permit of well of the person who is required with the permit of the wells under this act. Notice of transfer. Current permit with the notification of the department of new permit with the discovery of the department assignment of the transfer sale of the permitted well with the required permit of the act within 30 days effective with the day assignment of the transfer sale. Wells lift the notification transfer with the request placed with the new permit with the department of receivable confirmation. New permits will not operate the wells covered with the notice of the transfer with the condition with the 240-1440 men transfer of the request approved with the department. Responsibility. Current permit shall notify the department of the new permit assignment of the transfer shall with the form described by the department with the separate complete with each of the leaf of the well with the other assignment of the transfer of the shall with the notification assignment with the name of the penalty perjury. Current permit authorized representative of the department to equivalent copy of the lease permit of the volunteer with the lease and voluntary terminated without the document evidence with the assignment of the transfer sale. New permitted right of the drill with the operating with the wells land with the question necessary with the clarification right to operate. Responsibility. The new permit with the part of the department and given an effect of the transfer of the new permit with the configure with the department with the current department with the acceptance of the transfer of the scale with the possible the department form shall include with the operational certificate statement find section 240-1400 form and complete with the issue with the level with the sign with the transfer with the soul with the notification acceptance with the sign or penalty and purchase with the permanent authorized representative with the pay record with the time in front with the lease fee also with a fee of $75 per well with the first 100 wells fee of $50 per well exceeding 100 wells and shall be paid with the new owner at each transfer of the well ownership to section 14 of the act provided for the required bond if applicable in accordance with subsection O of the corporation provide evidence of the corporation corporate with the authorized to do business in the state of Illinois authorized and chartered to engage permanent activity if individual partnerships unincorporated entity with a non-residential Illinois provided revocable consent with the issue of Illinois if you submit the FEIN number to transfer the requirement of the PRF well with the new permit should comply with the 240-1465. Authority of person signing notification acceptance. With the notification acceptance shall have to be signed with the new permittee authorized over the permanent individual notification acceptance shall sign the individual with the new permanent partnership. The notification acceptance signed with the general partner permit and new permittee with the corporation notification acceptance for the time of the officer of the corporation in lieu with the signature with the new permit authorized individual notification accordance with the sign with the person with the power with the attorney signed with the person authorized provide certified power with the attorney for all with the department accompanied with the notification new permit with the settlement quarter of the document exhibit with the ownership of the leaf of the unit with the transfer of the event with the current permit with the located with the review the signing with the transfer form. Current permits may submit with the documentation other than transfer of the ownership of the leaf of the unit with the well with the event with the new permit review with the sign with the notification acceptance form. Conditions of effect of the issuance of transfer permit operator. When the department receives the current permit, the notice of the transfer, the list of the notice transfer of the transfer, the new permit, the list of the new permit with the responsible annual well fees prescribed in Subpart Q, that complying with the applicants of the Act, rules, regulation promulgated pursuant to the Act of those well with the permit with the transfer of the well, issue of the transfer of the new permit shall not operate the transfer of well. When the new permit has failed to authorize misstated information on the relative of the transfer application, new permit has failed to abate violation act of the final administrative decision of the department, or for the director agent with the power to determine the partner with the new permittee with the person with the interest of the new permittee exceeds 5% with the officer with the director partner and personing interesting 5% with either any of the failed to obey the violation specified of the final administrative decision of the department for the new permittee officer with the director agent with the power with the attorney partner person with exceeding interest of 5% with any other and either the failed to obey with the violation act with the specified with the final administrative decision of the department. Funds exceeding with the remaining outside of the plugging and the restoration fund plug funds of the Subpart B with any of the new permit with the previous permit with the new permit with the officer of the director power with the attorney partner person with the interest exceeding 5% of the permit which fund with the expended with the officer of the director agent with the power with the attorney person with the new permit with the person interest with the new permit with the exceed 5% with the was officer of the director agent power attorney partner person with the interest with the 5% of the permit which fund was expended new permit delinquent with the payment of annual well fee with the permit well with the was officer of the director agent power of the attorney person with the interest exceeding 5% of the permit delinquent with the payment of the annual well fee the officer of the director agent the power of the attorney applicant with the person interest in applicant exceeding 5% of the was the officer of the agent with the power attorney person exceeding 5% of the permit with the payment over the annual well fees. The permit shall only change with the permit with the operative with the transfer as well with the new permit with the bait with any of the non-compliant consisted of subsection with the leaves and either the person with the permit the transfer with the issue with the call the permit with the responsible regulatory requirements relative to the well. When the requirements of subpart are satisfied with the subsection E and F of the document shall the read permit transfer of the decision made from the amendment or the non-permitted with the possession of the well and with the transfer specifically no new permit or transfer of the mineral owned the new owner of the mineral rights of the transfer of the land of the which production injection of the wells prior lease located can in possession and then operate with the wells virtue with the voluntary with the relief of the involuntary term and each lease right for the court order new permits for the responsible for the regulatory requirements relative to any of those that identify with the transfer request of the existing with the power leave with the new permit to operate with the injection well located with the lease well with the covering verting any well with the injection well with the new injection well with the pits or the covered storage tank bottom batteries other stuff with the production existing with the lease boundary of the new permit show the transfer base leave with the permit in possession with the new right owners for the virtue of the new base leave with the permit show the documentation include with the temperature original lease for the shall be given responsible for the regulatory requirement relative with the other well identified with the new base lease document except that a new base lease conveys the right to produce all formation of the new base lease that any signed permits and operates in with the injection well of the tract of the land being traced covered production well with the injection well of the drill well drilling and new injection well within the area with the base lease or with the assignment signers shall be responsible for the regulatory requirements of all the wells penetrate with the injection well formation, concrete storage structure, pits and better existence of the well located with a quarter mile of the injection of the well and lease of the objective of the injection of the well directly called with the other well flowing other well site equipment located with the lease boundary leak fluids and with the fresh water for the new base lease of the assignment of the responsible for the full regulatory requirements relative to those of the flow lines of the well site equipment analysis of the equipment D2A with the include of this new base lease for the assignment of the voluntary taking responsibility requirement regulatory requirements of additional wells and concrete storage structure, pits, tanks, and located within core mile with the injection well lease boundaries, or For the new base, convey with the right to pursue with the special formations only. The new base lease will be assigned with a permanent operating injection will locate with the formation special for the new base leave with it converts any production will with the injection will with the drill with the new injection will specify formation. New base lease with an assignment with the responsibility with the regulatory requirements of all the ways for the injection with a well formation concrete structure pay sink battery existence of the relative of the specified formation may be to leave the quarter mile with the injection with the lease for the boundary operation with the injection causes any other wells flow line other site equipment located with the lease with the boundary specified with the formation leaking into fresh water with the strip of the new base lease assigned with the responsible for the regulatory requirements relative to those wells of the flow lines of the well site equipment of the suction D2 with the B with the preclude with the new base lease for the assignment of the voluntary take responsible for the regulatory requirement relative to the additional well concrete storage structure in pitch and with the tank batteries located in a quarter mile of the injection well lease boundaries. A new permittee request transfer assignment can be in possession of the operating well physically with the virtue of the leave the employment court or jurisdiction transfer of the receiver 240.14.10.A4 with the new permittee responsible for the regulatory requirements over the well concrete storage pit and tank battery extension with the lease being holding be assigned. If any well or lease on any other unit wells associated is vicinity with a part of the time transfer the new party and the new permittee with a violation amounted time allotted by the department and abatement. Transfer with the denied by the department shall transfer the well back to the current permittee well with the current permittee shall be responsible for the annual well fee with this prescribed in Subpartn Q with complying with the act with the rules regulation promulgated with the pursuant of the act with each well with the non-specifying F with the contractor right for the obligation seller with the buyer transfer the permit pursuant with the shall not with the department obligation during with the current permittee arising under the act and party with the act of the accruing with the act of the receiving the commence with the well administrative civil criminal or may be the instituted will continue without regard of the transfer of the permit in accordance with Subpartn. In the age of current permanent new permittee requests a hearing in accordance with section 240.14.90 challenging the department prior to transfer decision. Condition effects of the PRFR wells. Upon review and accept the transfer of the documents with approval of the transfer of the request permits with the first of the downhole well equivalent with the 30 years of the day of the drill with the files over the deemed at 50 zero salvage value. $50 per well, 750 feet or less, $100 per well with greater than 750 but less than 2,000 feet in deep, $250 per well with 2,000 feet or greater in depth. Pay salve with the tank with a pumping unit with the regulated equipment to determine the substitute independent salvage value estimate the commercial salvage oil gas equipment dealer with approved of the department pay with the fair market value per barrel from the time of the transfer approval of the oil for all oil fluid hydrocarbon stored with the lease of the unit. All payments by cash check with the pay with the Department of Natural Resource Plugging and Restoration Fund. All wells request for the transfer of the act with a 2-year period. Receiving transfer request accompanying assignment that no court with the interim determining the lease determining the transfer will without payment of salvage values outlined in subsection A. The department has sole discretion to approve of the denial of the request transfer of the PRF wells. Review of the transfer of the PRF well of the department. Determine the property rights, environmental, public safety wells concerned with advance for the plugging of the PFR well with accordance with the section 19.1 of the transfer of the request being denied. Revocation of permit to operate. The department may revoke the operator the transfer of the permit issue with an area with a new permittee failed with the permit maintain permit condition. New permittee complying with the 240.14.60A. The permit shall notify that the new permittee revoked the operative 30 days after the date of the notice of the hearing is required in accordance with section 240.251C. Involuntary transfer of the department administratively transfer of the permit to the person called the permit act of the department that depends on the base of the required documents submitted with the department with the man to give the current permitted well with the wells known over the wells well as defined in the act. New permittee shall pay for the required transfer fee for the transfer occurring with the provisions of the section transfers occurring over the provision of the section not subject to requirements of section 240.250B. Part operating transferred well with the permit with the provided divine requirements in accordance with section 240.1500A 1 and 2. Upon determination of the voluntary transfer of the shall now occurring with the new permit depending on administrative of the transfer will be effective 30 days with the day of the notice. This hearing is requested in accordance with the 240.14.90. Following completion of administrative transfer of the person over the well transferred immediately becoming responsible for all the regulatory requirements under this act. Administrative record correction. The Department Administrative of the correct of the permanent reflection of the person and of the record of the permanent under the act of the department based on the department record of the transfers may not be made with the department due to the administrative oversight of the prior previous transfer. New permanent section shall recover the transfer fee of the record correction on the date of the original transfer of the record corrections and concurring under the section not subject to requirements of 240, 1500, A1 and 2. Upon determination, administrative of the record correction department shall correct for the new permanent correction shall be advanced immediately with a new permanent 30-day of the notice of the request hearing on the current record correction in accordance with the 240 1490. Alright, transfer hearings. Occur on a new permanent request a hearing challenge of permanent transfer denial issue of the hearing requested within 30 days after the date of the transfer with a denial notice. Request of the hearing company document evidence based on the rejection of the new hearing is equivalent to the time period of the permanent transfer of the final ministry of the decision. The permanent hearing request current of the new permittee. Pre-hearing conference may be held 30 days after the receipt of the hearing with a prior hearing conference with the other in order simple factual legal issue with the presentation of the hearing request. Stipulation mission of the fact with the content of the authentic documents exchange list of the witness authorities identified with the test copy of the document for the parties and review of the evidence for the hearing, setting a hearing date, discussing and resolving other matters to extend the disposition of the hearing request to share with the conclusion. Pre-hearing conference may be the telephone conference with the acceptable all of the parties, all hearings and Subpartn of the conducted the impairing partial hearing officer employed with the department shall be held with the department office of the Springfield, Illinois. Permanent transfer of the department shall present evidence in support of the determination of the subsection A with the both of the current and the new with the permanent with the present evidence consistent with the department determination or subsection A hearing officer administrative oath affirmations, subpoena with the written material compelled with the attentive of the witness over the production of the material of the compelled to discover to take evidence. 30 days over the close of the record, permanent transfer hearing with the hearing officer for the issue of the recommended finding with the fact recommended conclusion with all the recommendations of the disposition of the case. For the permanent failure to request the hearing in accordance with Subpart C, the shall waive all of the legal requirement rights to consent with the permanent transfer the decision 30 days over the close of the hearing record expiration time. Question hearing with the department shall issue with the final administrative decision pursuant to Section 10 of its act. After the hearing, department find with the transfer of the well current permanent with the permanent individual with the department shall transfer the well back to the current permanent will this current permanent responsible for the annual well fees prescribed in Subpart Q of the compliant with the aspect of the act with all the rules regulation promulgated pursuant to the act with those wells. Section shall review the administrative record in conjunction with the hearing officer of the recommended finding facts recommended conclusion of the recommended with the disposition of the case. Direction shall issue the department finals administrative of the decision affirming vacating with the modifying with the hearings officer of the decisions. Or that was issue of our transfer to permit to operate. So part N, 1 O bonds.